Hello and welcome, and this is Peter. The first thing I'd like to say, gentlemen, is thank you very much for coming along and listening to my blog post today. I really appreciate that, so thank you very much for your time and your attention. This blog post is very short. I want to do a little bit of history about the BI4ALL report services reports because you'll find them available down below, right? And you can download them and have a look at them and knock yourself out. So the history was, way back in 2005, Microsoft announced report services, and I had a good look into it, and I was really impressed with the idea of having the report definition language defined as an XML language, and having that XML language exposed and able to be edited by anything that could read XML. So I had a good look into report services, and I decided that with the muscle of Microsoft behind it, remember they were promising to be able to read any database anywhere, I decided it seemed like a really good idea to build a suite of reports with report services. Now, of course, 2005 it was version 1.0. It didn't have a lot of features in it, and a small company in Canada called Dundas had built some pretty cool add-ons for report services. So I bought the Dundas add-ons, and these did things like charts and gauges and maps and things like that, right? So I bought the Dundas add-ons and I built a suite of report services reports, and I showed them off around anybody who would listen long enough to have a look. And of course, back in those days, Sean Kelly and I were selling to the very large companies, and the very large companies were not using report services. They were using MicroStrategy, Business Objects, Cognos, the usual suspects. So, we used them back then as demonstrations of what was possible, and they helped us in our sales cycles. Nobody ever bought the report services reports themselves, but we demonstrated them. We showed to people you could have this on Business Objects, you could have this on MicroStrategy, you could have this on Cognos, or whatever your favorite tool is. You could have something like this, right? And everyone could understand I could have something like this given what I choose, because we don't use Microsoft report services. And then, gentlemen, in 2008, Microsoft bought all the pieces from Dundas, all those extra applications I used, and started integrating them into SQL Server. Well, of course, they didn't provide any upgrade path, and nobody was looking in that direction. And by this time, we demonstrated these reports to many, many people, and it had become clear that none of the companies that we were selling to was ever going to use report services. And as nice as it was that the demonstrations were nice, Sean and I felt, no, we're not going to spend our time trying to migrate these things across to the new versions of these widgets from Microsoft. So we killed them off, and we just left them there. And as examples, we had PDFs and Excel spreadsheets. And that's where they've stayed for nigh on 15 years. I would say nigh on 14, 15 years. They've just sat there. Nothing's happened with them. And then the other day, I've decided that I'm going to have a crack at migrating these reports across to Visual Studio 2017. So a fairly recent version of Visual Studio. I thought I'd have a crack at migrating them across. And it turns out it wasn't too hard. It was very tedious and a little time consuming, but it wasn't too hard. And so, for your education and pleasure, gentlemen, you'll find a button down below, which is the link to my Dropbox, and in there you'll find the 70 odd report services reports that we created way back in 2006 to demonstrate what's possible with the BI4ALL database in the areas of campaign management, sales analysis, and segmentation analysis. Now I'm going to do a separate video about segmentation analysis specifically, because that's a pretty interesting thing, and I might even do demonstrations of these reports. Okay, I might do some video demonstrations of these reports, but you can find them down below on the link. Just go down there, click the link, unload the reports. Both the zip file is there, and the source for all the reports and all the stored procedures are there. So you could actually take what's there, move it into report services or into Visual Studio, and see how these things work. Now you won't be able to build them because obviously you don't have the database. Okay, so you won't be able to build them and run them. You won't have the database. Now if you're thinking, hey, these look pretty cool and we'd like to look at the BI4ALL data models, then I can give you a test copy of the database under a non-disclosure agreement. Okay? So fairly obviously, gentlemen, these reports and showing you these reports and how they are done is an entree to, hey, if you like those, you may want to have a look at the database that supports them. Okay? That's clear. That's right out there in the open. Okay? But if you don't want our data models, you can look at these report services reports and you can see quite a lot about how to build a nice suite of report services reports, particularly the custom assembly. Okay? So it's a valuable educational, valuable piece of educational material as well. Okay? So with that, I think I shall say thank you very much for listening, and bye for now.